outbreak on its website, but it would not directly confirm that it was the Blenheim Word of Life Church due to privacy, and it says there are 16 active cases attributed to community setting. When we initially reported on this on October 22nd, a post by the church's pastor indicated that one family had tested positive and that he would be closing the church for 14 days. I did reach out to the church directly today, which told me it's not making any statements at this time. Public Health did send a statement about the outbreak saying, "We have isolated the congregation and tested its members, whom are cooperative. We understand the place of worship on their own accord closed its doors for 2 weeks, but if Public Health feels it needs to remain closed for longer, we can keep it closed." Chris, I should also point out another situation in Chatham-Kent we learned about this afternoon. The Lambton-Kent District School Board reported a probable case of COVID-19 in the secondary school community. It is currently contacting students and staff that may have come into contact with the virus, and while it's not naming the school, it says it does stay open.
Now, Jacob, locally here in Windsor and Essex County, they saw a big jump in cases today. We've seen those numbers crawl up from a low level over the past week or so, double-digit increase. Can you break down where those cases come from?
Well, Chris, the last time we saw higher numbers, they could be attributed to situations like we saw in seniors' homes and the congregate living conditions of migrant workers. Today, 12 of the 17 new cases came from close contact with someone who has the virus, and 3 of them are from community spread. Remember, Thanksgiving was just a couple of weeks ago, and while the health unit was not available for questioning today, provincial officials recently pointed at the holiday as a reason for a surge in cases. I spoke with an epidemiologist who did say that Thanksgiving was likely showing up in the case counts, but he also says these patchy outbreaks are part of an expected part of the reopening and the way public health units are combating outbreaks as they come up, something he referred to as cluster busting. That means breaking the transmission of the virus by contact tracing back to the origin of a cluster and isolating those that came in contact.
Is something that we expect to see with the reopening, and it shouldn't be seen as a failure rather than a success of the system being able to find out these cases, get to the bottom of them, test, trace, and isolate. And that's what we expected to do, and it's happening quite successfully outside of the hotspots in Ontario.
Now, Chakrabarty also actually says we are lucky to be in a smaller center here because we can have ongoing contact tracing. He says in larger centers like Toronto, which are hotspots, they've had to halt that kind of tracing because of the large number of cases there. Chris?
Thanks, so Jacob. The CBC's Jacob Barker, live tonight. Canada has crossed a sobering milestone. More than 10,000 people have now died from COVID-19. With cases surging in many parts of the country, the Prime Minister is warning of a tough winter ahead. Today, Justin Trudeau didn't mince words while acknowledging the frustration people are feeling about living with a pandemic.
We are in an unprecedented global pandemic that really sucks. It's tough going through this second wave. It's frustrating having shut down all of us, our lives through the spring, and now be forced to make more difficult choices and knowing that it's going to be a tough winter ahead as well. But I know Canadians can get through this together. And yes, we've seen rises in cases here and there. We've also seen flattening of the curve in other places. We know we can do this. We've done it before.
Trudeau says it's frustrating to tell your child not to go trick-or-treating this weekend, but he urged Canadians to help by doing their part to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Quebec and Ontario account for 88% of the 2,000 new cases added today. Several provinces have imposed new restrictions as local health officials continue to monitor local transmissions. Police were called to a house for a noise complaint in Leamington late Sunday night. When they popped out to investigate, they found dozens and dozens of people inside. Essex OPP said that they found more than 50 people at the home, well over the current allowed limits. A 35-year-old man at the house has been fined $750 under the Reopening Ontario Act. Just as a reminder here, the current limits for gatherings not at a staffed event, 10 inside, 25 people outside, and that's across Ontario. With the U.S. election just a week away, some Canadians who've been working at hospitals south of the border are hoping for a change in leadership. This as COVID-19 cases surge in many states once again. The CBC's Katerina Georgieva has more.
Nikki Hillis-Walters is a nurse in Michigan. Kate Kemplin, a nurse scientist who ran a field hospital in New York City for several months at the height of the pandemic there. Both have seen the worst of COVID-19 firsthand. With the U.S. election around the corner, they say there's so much on the line.
Health is at stake, lives are at stake, foreign policy, the United States' reputation around the world is at stake.
A dual citizen, Kemplin lives in Windsor, Essex. While in New York, she and her colleagues helped get the area over the peak and have since closed down. But she's open to returning and setting it up again if needed. More than 225,000 people have died from COVID-19 in the U.S. Kemplin points to a lack of government intervention.
If the response had been by the book, there could be over 100,000 Americans alive right now, and that's devastating.
Hillis-Walters, a Windsorite, moved to Michigan full-time during the pandemic with her family. She works at Beaumont Hospital in Grosse Pointe.
Living here, whoever gets elected, it impacts me directly, right? What their stance is on immigration, what their stance is on healthcare for everybody, like what kind of healthcare people are going to get coming through the doors of my hospital.
Thinking back to spring, her hospital was maxed out. She felt helpless. Now another surge in Michigan. But so far, Hillis-Walters says hospitalization rates haven't been as bad. She just hopes it doesn't go back to what it was.
Don't let it dominate you. Don't be afraid of it.
President Trump, who caught COVID-19 earlier this month, has largely played down the virus.
We see the numbers. A lot of people have lost their lives. A lot of people are still suffering from side effects. Like we're having people come back in with complications from having had the virus. And so for a lot of people, that was heartbreaking to hear.
For Kemplin, there's only one right way to respond to a pandemic.
And that is to have your scientists and clinicians leading the way and to get out of their way.
Biden is ahead of Trump in the national polls, but a surefire win will mean clinching key battleground states like Michigan. The pandemic continues to be front and center in the race, with the country setting records for daily infections in recent days. This has frontline workers hoping for the best and bracing for the worst. Katerina Georgieva, CBC News, Windsor.
You can read that full story online. Just go to cbc.ca/Windsor. Kingsville Council has passed a bylaw prohibiting light pollution from greenhouses as well as odors coming from cannabis growing operations. The bylaw is in response to a number of complaints the town has received from neighbors and other residents over the past 2 years. People who have been pushing for this say they're happy it's been passed.
People love this community. Kingsville is a quaint community, and they don't want to see it destroyed by, lighting, odor issues. So it's a way for the community to preserve the small town, quaint town that we live in.
Now, the group would also like to see loud noises regulated and to see mushroom farms included in that odor bylaw. Now, a similar bylaw dealing with light pollution is going to Leamington Council tonight, but the mayor says there should be public input before the final bylaw is passed to avoid court challenges.
We need to be able to defend this in front of an appeal board. And I don't think that if we go right out of the gate saying that immediately these fines are in place and immediately farms have to have curtains in place, I think that will be shot down in court.
Now, back in Kingsville, that bylaw includes personal fines ranging from $5,000 to $10,000 and corporate fines ranging from $50,000 to $100,000. Kingsville's Mayor Nelson Santos says the town will give farms time to get the appropriate blackout screens needed to comply with any orders.
They're just going. Every day is a new thing.
I always feel like I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Our day-to-day here became much like a command center.
What's it like to manage a public health crisis? 3 people working flat out with the Windsor and Essex County Health Unit share their story. Long days, hard sacrifices, dealing with the unknown. They tell us what the last months have been like, starting with Phil Wong, who oversees inspections for the local health unit.
A lot of calls come in. I actually pulled some stats here. We had about, since the pandemic till now, 6,500 complaints and inquiries. Just for our team. That's not including COVID-related questions that the public have, that when they're calling the nurses. That's 6,500. And they've conducted about 5,500 on-site inspections. And we've had 120 outbreaks, not only COVID, but just in general. So we've got a team of 20 inspectors and about 5 tobacco enforcement officers that are helping with the bylaw, the enforcement for the Reopening of Ontario Act. So again, they're just going. Every day is a new thing. I mean, we try to prepare as much as we can ahead of time, but it's a new thing every day.
When that March, April run started, what were those days like for you? Are we talking like you were waking up, looking at a phone, and just go, or did you go to sleep? Like, what was it like there for that period of time?
I think most of the folks here at the health unit were just going. I mean, not only the inspectors and management, but even and the nurses. It's 7 days a week. Our leadership team has been going 7 days a week. I think they still are going 7 days a week. I think a lot of our guys here have been doing 10, 12 hours a day. Management have been doing 10, 12 hours a day on call. The pandemic doesn't stop at the end of the day, right? So right in the beginning, putting all those things in place, and it's still not over.
What was that like to not only have that during your day for such long periods of time, but you can't really even escape it when you get home?
Exactly, and that's why I don't have anything. I have only good things to say about all the folks here at the health unit. They've all gone through the same thing, right? Working long hours, going home, trying to figure out, all right, now what do I have to do to make sure our families are safe? I mean, for me personally, I was lucky. I have my fiance at home. She did all the groceries and things like that, and I remember, coming in, seeing the grocery stores before all the measures came in place, and then I just remember. I didn't walk in the grocery store until about June for me, and I walked in there, it was all different, and it was a shock to me, seeing it change so greatly like that. But I can say, a lot of the folks, we just had to go. I mean, the public health, I mean, you don't know what we're doing until a pandemic happens, and then it's at the forefront, right? And a lot of folks in the community not sure what public health is until the pandemic started. That's what I found. So I guess that's a little bit of the silver lining as to community just increasing their awareness. Right?
How did you mentally prepare yourself to not burn out or to try and make it through this with the colleagues you have around you?
Our team here is great. They work together very well, support each other through everything, and that's the key here, right? I mean, in the middle of the pandemic, everyone's going to be under stress, under pressure. There's got a lot of anxiety going on. Our folks have kids too. Our family members, parents might be in long-term care homes. So we all realized what the key and the importance of everybody's role, and we're here to support each other. And I think that's really important. I mean, everybody's just go, but at the end of the day, we also work together and support each other, and that's how we do it. I gotta say, some of our folks here, again, they've been going long hours, and I'm not until the last couple of months is when, actually Thanksgiving was the first day we actually shut down for the first time, for 1 day, but I was on call, so, but everybody else was at home, so that was the first day, so since the beginning of the pandemic till now. So I'd say, like I said, it's to mentally prepare. I don't know how we would do it, we just do it.
Now you can read more about this online at cbc.ca/Windsor. Tomorrow night, we're going to hear about the grueling process of contact tracing and how those ever-evolving provincial and federal guidelines cause stress for public health officials who are asked to implement them here in Windsor, Essex. Another look outside here as we truck along through a week of chilly weather. Colette Kennedy joins us next to break down the forecast. Joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. Colette, I tagged you in something on Twitter there. There are reports of what may be snow in LaSalle.
Yeah, you know, I know it's early, but it does happen in October that we do get snow. So lots of folks are, having a little bit of trouble digesting this, but we really weren't obviously anticipating getting snow in LaSalle. I mean, we're not expecting that, but there is some cold air aloft, and so I can believe that there might be a few little flakes, or getting that possibility that some of it holds together as snow all the way, making it through to the ground, but mostly we are talking about showery activity because of the temperatures that we have, but enough cold air aloft. It is possible in a few spots. Most of the snow, the light snow that we're seeing in the province, is over into eastern Ontario. I want to show you something here with the daily stats. I mean, as soon as I can even plug these numbers in, the temperature drops further. So where I have today's low, that's not going to be the low for the day. It's going down further from here. But just to look at those numbers, this is the best we can do. Even the daytime high and the low close to where we should be for our average lows, right? So current temperatures just looking kind of around. This is where we're seeing those readings closer to freezing, and where they're getting more significant. I say significant, it's a dusting on the ground, but it's more consistent with some of the light snow there. That band of rainfall, yes, we're seeing that. Why am I taking you down to the tropics? Tropical storm Zeta, wind speeds about 100 kilometers an hour, going to become a hurricane again. The fifth one likely that's going to push in towards Louisiana. The 11th one likely for the mainland of the U.S. And by the time we get to about Thursday, so tomorrow we're actually going to get some clearing. We'll see it later on this evening, overnight. We're going to get into clearing for Wednesday. By the time we get to Thursday, we may pick up some moisture from this in terms of some showers, cold air on the backside, a few flurries coming back into the forecast, possibility, or a little bit of mix. Yeah, it'll be very, very light in nature, but you might see that in your skies, so gotta let you know about that. So some colder air Thursday night into Friday, Friday night into Saturday. Overnight tonight getting close to, but above freezing, closer to seasonal tomorrow with sunshine. That'll be a welcome change to bounce back. There you go Thursday. I'm going to watch this carefully because we'll see the tracking of that. Some of that moisture may stay to the south of us, so still going to see how the remnants of Zeta are going to pass through. And still looking at a dry Halloween. But cooler air is going to be coming in at the end of this week.
Okay, and that sun will certainly help tomorrow. Certainly a dreary day out here today.
Yes, it'll be nice.
Thanks for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
A pair of by-elections in Toronto with some big political after effects. We break that down next. Premier Doug Ford faced more questions today after one of his MPPs posted photos of himself with dozens of others. No masks, no distancing. This is the photo that PC MPP Sam Oosterhoff posted, then quickly took down from his Facebook feed. It was taken at Betty's restaurant in Niagara over the weekend. The restaurant has now commented on the controversy, writing, quote, "This group was reminded several times that they were required to wear masks when not seated at their table. Unfortunately, they chose not to follow posted rules about wearing masks and distancing. We can remind guests, but we cannot strong-arm them into following rules." Here's what Premier Ford had to say about his MPP compared to his past comments about those who break the rules.
MPP Oosterhoff came out, he apologized. He said it's not going to happen again, and I accept that. You know, there was a mistake made. We all make mistakes. I understand that, and I take him for his word. He's a great MPP, and I support Sam like I support everyone. Guys, what? Like, man, come on. Like, what don't you get? You have everyone in the province sitting there bending over backwards, and we've got a bunch of jokers out there that think it's no problem. Go out there and hold the party. They must be a few fries short of a Happy Meal, these people, because I don't get it. They go out there, they know the rules, and they just blatantly ignore it, and they're hurting families. You think the cheese slipped off the cracker with these people? Like, they just don't get it. Like, come on. We're all in this together. I can't emphasize it enough that we can't have these big parties. Everyone makes mistakes. He apologized. He's not going to do it again. So, you know, he understands, and I'm sure he'll pass it on to the rest of the folks that were there as well.
He is currently the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Education. 2 seats up for grabs in by-elections, and in both cases, the federal Liberals were able to hold on to power. One was to replace former Finance Minister Bill Morneau, and it saw a new party leader go down to defeat. David Thurton has more on the head of the Green Party and where she goes from here.
Annamie Paul is catching her breath after running multiple races, an 8-month leadership bid, and then yesterday's by-election.
It feels like a marathon, you know, and a marathon where there's no end in sight.
Her performance was good in the by-election, but not good enough. Up against a Liberal stronghold, she lost to Liberal candidate Marcy Ian, a well-known TV personality. But Paul says her win put the Liberals on notice.
The fact that the Green Party and our campaign was able to come within 9 points of taking that riding with all of the constraints of running in a pandemic, that should tell them first that the Greens are here.
It's been a campaign where the NDP has been accused of running a candidate against a party leader. Greens didn't run a candidate when NDP leader Jagmeet Singh ran in a by-election.
No, I think the Green Party is to blame for the Green Party losing. It is not the NDP's job or any other party's job to elect the Green Party leader. It is the Green Party's job.
But despite the Greens' gains, don't read too much into last night's result, one pollster says.
In terms of reading the tea leaves, in terms of greater political trends, by-elections are like the worst yardstick you can use because they are very specific to one riding and they are very specific to the dynamics on the ground.
Instead of looking back, Curl says Greens need to look forward and consider where Paul will run next, possibly in former leader Elizabeth May's seat if she steps aside.
Of course, I have to consider it. I respect her enormously, but she hasn't even hinted at such an idea.
We're not looking to substitute seats, we're looking to gain seats.
There are promising seats that Paul could run in a general election, but Paul says her focus right now is making sure that her whole party is ready for whenever that comes. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
6:29 p.m. and that is it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, you can find more stories online, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for CBC Windsor on any of those platforms. You can find us there. Power and Politics is up next. We're going to join that already in progress. Thanks for watching. Make sure you and your family have a wonderful night tonight.